You accuse the second questioner, I believe, of caricaturing Christians, and I believe that you've committed the same crime towards atheists. From your presentation, it seems that you're making us all out to be a bunch of nihilists, kind of like the guys from The Big Lebowski. And in the end, I would be forced to say that a lot of our morals are not based on this idea of humanity being insignificant in the end. And this accusation of speciesism is, I don't really think that such a concept necessarily has to exist. My question to you is, based on, my beliefs that, our morals are informed, are based on our feelings, our relationships with the people around us, our empathy for our fellow human beings, how is that less valid somehow than some belief in an absolute moral system imposed by God?
All right, it seems to me that the view you just expressed is the view that you said I was caricaturing atheists with, namely that our moral values are based in our feelings, our relationships with other people, things of that sort. I don't think I caricatured atheists. In fact, what I'm arguing is that atheists should be nihilists, not that they are nihilists. As I said to the previous question, I don't think anybody can really live like a nihilist. Even Nietzsche couldn't. But I think that the atheist should be a nihilist, given his worldview. Why? Well, because if morality is just based in feelings and relationships with other people and the way we were raised, by our parents and society, then it's all relative. Someone who has different feelings or raised in a different society might have a vastly different set of values and moral duties, and therefore it's not objective, it's purely subjective. And really it's just the result of human socio-biological conditioning. So it seems to me that the view you expressed is exactly the view that I'm saying atheists ought to hold to. Yeah, go ahead.
In light of that, my question is more along the lines of, why is that such an unacceptable thing? In one of your YouTube videos, you were talking about a position, I think, that was the difference between something being intellectually defensible and emotionally defensible. If these values and all provide us with the complete fulfillment that maybe the acceptance of absolute morals would provide a religious person, why are these so indefensible, so unacceptable?
Yeah. Well, I think I would say two things there as to why I think it's unacceptable. First would be because it's false. That is to say, I'm convinced that there really are objective moral duties and values, that the Holocaust is not just something that is wrong relative to Western democratic standards, but right for the Nazis. So that if the Nazis had won World War II and everybody believed the Holocaust was good on that atheistic view, then it really would have been good. That to me is morally unconscionable. I think that's just false. I think there are objective moral values and duties. So that's the first reason I would say this is unacceptable. It's just false. The second reason is because it leads to a worldview which is, I think, unlivable. It's incapable of being lived consistently and happily. You cannot live consistently and happily as though moral values and duties are just the results of feelings and subjective impressions. You're going to want to say, for example, that apartheid was really wrong, that the killing fields of Cambodia were really wrong. And you can't do that if it's just based in feelings. So those would be the two reasons I think that it's unacceptable, is that it's false, that's fundamental, and then the second one would be it's unlivable.
I want you to talk about this soundbite that God is dead and the origins of that. When we're talking about God's not dead, which is obviously a response to this Nietzschean phrase that comes out, and now it begins to morph and evolve, and it still floats around. When you hear the phrase God is dead, where do you talk about the origins of that and the impact of that and how you're seeing that reversed?
Well, it comes from a 19th century German philosopher named Friedrich Nietzsche, who proclaimed the death of God. And what Nietzsche understood was that the death of God changed everything. If there is no God, that is to say, if God does not exist, then Nietzsche said we're left with just nihilism. That is to say, there is no meaning, no value, no purpose in life. Everything becomes absurd. And Nietzsche presented this slogan in the mouth of a lunatic, a madman, because that was the way the people of his culture looked at him. They couldn't understand the implications of atheism. But Nietzsche predicted someday people would really grasp the implications of modern unbelief, and this would usher in this age of nihilism, the destruction of all meaning and value and purpose in life.
What, from your study, what was the impact when he first said this? What was the original impact of those statements? When he began to put this, when he wrote that, what was the name of the character? Is it Zoroaster?
It was Also sprach Zarathustra was the name of the dialogue.
See, I
but
knew
as I say,
that.
it was
I absolutely knew that.
It was the madman. This is so interesting. It was the madman who proclaimed the death of God, and the people around him thought he was crazy. And they didn't understand why he was so upset in proclaiming the death of God, because they didn't really understand the implications of atheism. And I think what Nietzsche was saying was that modernity has let go of God. It's abandoned God without understanding that when you do so, everything changes. Life doesn't just go on as before. And I suspect, Rice, that culture still hasn't come to learn this Nietzschean lesson. I think Nietzsche is one of the few who have stared atheism in the face without blinking. But the modern new atheists, for example, tend to be humanists. They tend to still affirm values of human worth and intrinsic human rights, that there's a purpose in life. They tend to affirm many of traditional Christian values and so forth. They really haven't understood the implications of atheism if there is no God.